much for Juli and the presentation, and we are setting up the stage for today's last roundtable discussion. And I would also like to ask everyone in the crowd to join us through that microphone. And if you don't mind, I would like to start perhaps wrapping up the three talks and the potential interconnected issues they all tackle. And perhaps what I have add firstly is that within their own way of thinking and critiquing different practices, they all three presentations gave a very thoughtful way of how to decenter dominant ways of seeing things, whether if it's a nanoscale scale of machines or as matters, or matters as machines, or the dominant ways of thinking about our attempts, our let's say post-planetary attempts of leaving planet Earth, or the way how we think that you know, as Juli tackled on, that although future is not evenly distributed, the catastrophes, on the other hand, are also not evenly distributed, and there are people who are harmed more. So this is the way how we have to decenter the way we look at the uneven conditions of distribution. So the reason why I'm asking is that the panel was titled Technopolitics of Planetary Computation and Beyond, and by computation, as Boldizsár perfectly exemplified, we are not thinking about just machines and phones and etc., but it's a kind of way of reorganizing things, matter, life in a systemic way. So what I wanted to ask is that how would you define this technopolitics that would come from your presentations in individual? What would technopolitics in action would look like, coming, I mean, strictly from what you have outlined in your presentation?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm not a politician. I think we should read a bit more, and I try to. It's not a political project, but I try to find a topic and the theme and the form which is absent from most of our discussions and our life. If its effects are overly presented, like computational systems and technocratic stuff, but we rarely think about it and rarely talk about it or rarely do anything. And I just try to find something which can be like made by hand and shared by people and then talked about and see it working. So that would be the first part, and maybe to see the connection between models, political models, models of living beings, and computational models are more and more connected, and as we'd like to think.
So just adding to that, for instance, I always find amazement in looking at YouTube videos about mushrooms that are reconnecting, you know, the Tokyo metro lines and things like that. So through your, through your presentation, perhaps both intentionally and unintentionally, there were a kind of alternative way of governance and an alternative way of non-human technopolitics suggested. And this is something that I really want to perhaps talk about, because there are, I presume, this kind of underlying interconnectedness between these presentations. But please, András.
Okay. What would be like a manual for? So I don't believe we are, especially through like rational thought, putting it into words, sharing through words. I'm not sure if we are, if it's possible to get out of the reference of the human, but any kind of surplus or loss that is not balanced or calculated, but at least counted that there is something, that there might be something else, is I think the first step. So I still think that a great deal of the anthropocentralizing is still extremely just human-centric, but it can reflect back on our behavior. And I don't think that we are able to calculate the surplus, but we can kind of intuit that and change, that can change behavior. That would be like a fast answer.
The things you say make me think about another project from Anna Tsing and others, which is called Feral Atlas. Anybody knows it? Feral Atlas? No? Feral Atlas is a research project that's visualized as an interactive database that looks at all the non-human actors of globalized capitalist trade, and that includes bacteria, that includes small animals, that includes viruses, and all sorts of more than human actors that shape words. And that's I find it a very fascinating project, and it's also about a lot about decentering the human. Yeah, for me, in reflection to your presentation, I think an important aspect of decentering or rethinking our relationship to space would be to sort of, because right now, at least in the public eye, it's very much attached to the super machist rhetoric. And that it would be very interesting to think about this in another style, in my opinion. And how that cycle look like, I'm curious of.
So, getting back to more on the individual level of each presentation, starting with András, I wanted to ask you how a minoritarian space program would look like. I mean, from this perspective that I mean, this is something that you have also like suggested, especially at the beginning, that thinking about rising and thinking about leaving the Earth behind has always been a kind of monopoly. This very imagination has been always a monopoly of the centers, whether if it's a Soviet space program or US or European or now the Chinese. And so there's a very interesting Chinese sci-fi movie which is actually suggesting that we don't have to leave Earth behind, but we have to change Earth into a spaceship and move it elsewhere in the galaxy. And this is somehow that also relates to this Buckminster Fullerian concept of the spaceship, and it reminded me of that you were talking about the shipwrecks, you know, shipwrecks as metaphors of existence, as Hans Blumenbach suggests. So this kind of metaphysical underlying of that we are already in a ship together. This is also something that Michel Serres, who was himself also a sailor, by the way, writes a lot about. So that this kind of boat metaphor, that we are all together in this one singular boat. Do you think is this, and now it's opening up the question for all three of you, and also perhaps for the entire audience, do you think this ship metaphor is still a good one, a relevant one, or if not, what other kind of metaphors we have?
I think it's a bad metaphor. The word cybernetics actually comes from sea navigation, from turning the ship towards goals, and it's like implies that we humans have the special task to turn this ship one way or another. Maybe it's the way things should be, but for the whole world, we just I don't think we can grasp it with one metaphor or with one contained space like a ship or Earth.
I also think it's a bad metaphor. It's a break. So I will just tell what my problem is with it. I think it is a level, it is a certain scale where like middle-sized objects meet, but we need to like go beyond every scale and realize that we kind of have a feeling of unity, but we are units with bigger and smaller things, and each have their own needs and wants, and it is okay to acknowledge our certain needs, but at every moment on other levels things are lost and things die, and everything just kind of wants to survive in the next moment and on different levels, and so it can work on one level, but I think it's more important to acknowledge that at any other point, like things die because I'm alive, and it's more a matter of what kind of sacrifice I am willing to accept, or how what kind of I don't know if it's balance is not the best word, but what moral optimum can I find?
Nedi Okorafor has a brilliant little piece of science fiction called Binti. It's a small trilogy, and in it there is a side character, a spaceship that is of female gender and is alive. It's a creature. So she can repair herself, she can change her climate and the interior climate to the needs of the passengers, and she eventually has a baby during the trilogy that she grows inside herself in space. And I find that sort of speculation very remarkable in this field of thinking.
This also reminds me, I mean, your commentaries of the late Heidegger's famous Spiegel interview when he is talking about humans landing on the moon, and that very moment when he sees that one of the first let's say people who landed on the moon left the surface of the moon, and this kind of leaving the ground for him turned him into a very pessimist one about the futurity of humans, because this is a symbol for him of leaving all the roots behind and all our groundedness. And this is very interesting that Benjamin Bratton in his terraforming essay suggests the opposite, that it is only those humans would really have a planet who actually leave it behind. So this is kind of an opposite direction. It's not something negative, but perhaps another solution to think back about the planet. So what I'm trying to also perhaps tackle on is that Juli, the presentation of yours and just the sheer visuals is actually something that is let's say more of the negative post-apocalyptic realism or dystopian realism of our presence, and it's a completely different image or viewing of our planet that we, for instance, the 60s utopian, space age era had, that it is a clean blue dot floating, in the galaxy. So I'm wondering how this wrecked Mad Max post-apocalyptic planet looks like when you are seeing it from within. Do you still see, you think like these people who are actually dismantling computers, etc., are they seeing it as fragments of a whole, or it's just another kind of perception about, they don't even see that it is a kind of systemic problem that they are fragments of.
I'm not entirely sure that I understand your question. I can't really speak in the name of people I don't know. Do you mean, is this about how these people might see those technological objects?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because in my imagination, there's not a lot of difference between us being blind to the other states of our objects and then being blind to the other states of the objects as the ones they see and the one that is their daily reality. But I'm just speculating here. But I think the way I think you might take away all the ugly things from my talk, because there's also a lot of optimism in there. I think there's a lot of acknowledging of knowledge and acknowledging of survival, which is maybe not that happy, but what Zink tries to teach us is that we have to let go of our ideas of progress and development, and that's also sort of what broken theory teaches us, in order to understand our possible futures. Is that an answer? And I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing.
What I wanted to, then perhaps I'll turn it this way, like whereas let's say the more dominant in the Western perspective and in the developed or perhaps overdeveloped world, phones are shrinking, technology is getting more advanced, but we tend to forget that this is cost other people's life, and this is something that you tackle on. So what I wanted to ask is that perhaps can we change our focus, our viewpoints to other way around, to see always already the ruins also of like an advanced technology. So this is something like this ruinologist aspect of, like, you just only see the shiny surfaces of technology, but never the possible outcome, the downside that is yet to come.
I might pass on the question to Boldizsár, right? Yeah. Because you don't explicitly mention permacomputing in your talk, but do you think your work has to do with permacomputing, or do you think it doesn't? And there's also, is permacomputing an actual catchword right now to help us think, avoid thinking in broken word?
I'm just vaguely familiar with the topic and the term permacomputing. I don't really know. My work, if there's a work for me, is just to find the roots within philosophy and people's practice of these so complicated and sophisticated verbs.
There's a lot of hardware involved in your work. You build hardware.
Mm-hmm. But sorry, I just didn't get the gist of the question. What should I talk about permacomputing?
Then I'll try to ask it in another way. Do you see your work as a response of building different technologies than the technologies we have now that produce all the, or that if the current technologies amplify racial and ecological inequalities.
Yeah, maybe, but my point was that this so-called technology and computation we like to think as a human endeavor, it already happens. So we don't have to do it, you know. We don't have to build extra theories, but they will happen, they will appear. If the world itself changes, we will have to change with it, or make change within it. But to make plans and algorithms and projects, that's for the party to decide.
For the party?
Yeah. Maybe the Communist Party or some anarchistic groups, I don't know. I'm just talking about like viewpoints and perspectives within technology. It's not so human after all. That would be my point. Sorry to be vague.
Perhaps this is also a right time to give the microphone to the audience, because it seems we have a couple of questions ahead. Please.
I have a question regarding storytelling, because there was a lot of conversation about science fiction, and I'm not that old, but like I grew up with my grandpa showing me a lot of science fiction movies, and I sort of really, I guess we all have seen how technology failed us, and like how the narrative in science fiction just became more and more dystopic in a very different way. So sometimes I really question like what's the future of storytelling when it comes to science fiction, because I guess we've seen that in the most recent years it was really much more based on like invisibility, animism, and like immateriality. So I don't mean to repeat that on the table, but I think that sometimes I question how much we can turn, specifically merging the two of your conversation, like how can we merge science fiction storytelling into some sort of like realization of materiality of technology? Because I think, as you said, like this ideology of runes, like no one wants to think about it. And also, but I just feel like I sometimes assume we come to a dead end when it comes to like science fiction storytelling. So, yeah, and in case any of you would be interested, there's this interesting term that has been coined recently by this Italian philosopher, which is called the hardware turn, which he says that media and digital theories have never thought about hardware from a digital humanities perspective, and now because of like geopolitics, but also because of just the sort of dead end of Silicon Valley storytelling, we just have to face like hardware. And so I'm just thinking as I speak, like what does science fiction for hardware look like? If not, you know, some kind of Dune-like scenario. Like I mean sand and like, you know, rooms and stuff.
Was this question pointed to for the two of us, or no?
It's exclusive. Inclusive.
In terms of hardware, for me, what is exciting, if we should even make a big difference between protein and non-protein instruments, like eyes and hands. Sometimes we kind of place the question between the eye and the world, and I'm thinking, what if we place the question between the brain and the eye, or any other kind of instrument? So any kind of carbon-based instruments are compiling us some kind of world. So I am not so skeptic. I think it is we have to deal with the bodies at all costs if we don't produce hardware or digital hardware. So I think we need to also account our biologic hardware, and at that point I don't feel like there is a huge difference. Like there's a lot of waste, yes, there's a lot of bodies and a lot of electronics. You know, we have to do something with it. Human carbon capture, or I don't know. Whether there, and here comes the stories that we need to think about the stories which are behind the eye, because very often all the science fiction is for the eyes, or it's visualizations, or I mean even probably my work. So it's not But I think what would be interesting is to think if we can try to go one level back. But that would be the challenge for me in storytelling.
I don't really have a very clear and straight answer, but I'm pretty sure that if you look at the whole history of Western science fiction, there's a lot of sort of colonialist thought, there's a lot of male chauvinism, and all these things are not helping us to rethink science fiction along the lines of anything, basically. And so, and that kind of machismo and that kind of colonial thinking of exploring a strange alien new planet is also permeating a lot of how we think about AI. And I think it's this stream of mainstream thought that makes possible and enables people like Elon Musk to operate the way they do. Yeah. It's just not really a very optimistic answer, but as maybe a sort of tiny addition, I think we need to try to think outside of these constraints for that, for what you're asking.
Just one point regarding the hardware problem. Maybe we shouldn't divide machines into hardware and software anymore. So it's very hard to do it with living organisms and the world. It's very practical to do that. Most of the sci-fi being written is using that metaphor. But for me, an interesting sci-fi would try to imagine artifacts and stuff and songs and cultures which rely on another system, which is not not separating the software or the language from the material reality, but combines them in a new way. Neumann János, actually, at the end of his life, he tried to come up with an idea for artificial life, and he created very small models of very primitive cellular machines. And that was kind of a starting point for that speculation.
I would have to say, I think I would suggest kind of preparing a reading list around science fiction, because this is what I'm getting is a very limited understanding of what science fiction offers. But I would also like to offer a speculation here. Given the minoritarian space program that has been proposed, and the ability of feminist hackers to uncover the Hungarian government's quantum physics Hungarian space program. It's been rumored, I know, but I think it's true. And of course, this should be connected with the Flat Earth Slovakian ministry. And I'm pretty sure that AI could be useful in generating a lot of media around the uncovering, basically, of this abuse of tax money in Hungary that is clearly going on as we speak. And that the long history of the Austro-Hungarians that got the Austro-Hungarian law. And I know that Kishpal Saboch there is an expert in this. He also likes to keep it secret because his life could be on the line. Let's make this secret public.
First of all, I would like to thank all of you. They were very fascinating questions. My academic interests can be mostly summarized by game studies. Currently, I'm mostly interested in that, and I was given a lot of food for thought in that regard. And I don't know if I have too productive a question, but I would like to have along the lines of the minoritarian space program. I would like to offer Octavia Butler's novels as a sort of companion piece, and I am a big fan of a video game called Citizen Sleeper, which is hugely influenced by the mushroom at the end of the world. So if you anytime would happen to play that, I would be interested in your thoughts. And thank you.
Maybe I'm asking about the hard landing, but maybe not. That's what I recognize that one could say that art itself is like a science fiction, like a subgenre in a way, and especially in your storytelling, mixing media activities, and also the metaphor of the spaceship reminds me another metaphor, or the hardware, invented a similar time, like in 19th century, and developed in 20s, the museum of art, or the museum, yeah? As a space that can put something and protect and go in the time. Yeah? And how do you find your art? Because all of you are artists in this panel, in this part, in context of the kind of the crisis of all, not only the spaceship that you doesn't want to keep as a metaphor, and also I think the museum, the white cube, is still not enough for the activity that you represent, and the methods, yeah, that, I don't know, Twitch channel, or library, or the laboratory, or mix of that, and that's, I think, we need to invent another, yeah, I don't know what. Yeah.
Conference room.
Container. No, it's everything. It's doesn't work.
Yeah, well, I would happily stay in institutions forever or at home, but I have to deal with small kids all the time. It's actually quite fun to do. It's very painful, but talk to small children all the time. They will munch you to the bones, but yeah.
Well, I guess my focus in response to this is on another population, which are hackers. So for me, when I started my doctoral research back in 2013, that seemed an extremely hopeful moment for hacktivism. And so what I propose in the book that was mentioned here before is that it are two separate things. One is that hacktivism in its way of functioning, its modus operandi relies a lot on strategies of the 20s avant-garde art. But also that hacktivism as it looked before COVID, before QAnon and so on, it really can teach a lot to contemporary arts, not only in terms of ethics, but also in terms of strategies and focus. So that is an answer that has to be reevaluated, I suppose, based on the last 5 years since the book was finished. But there was a moment when that answer seemed valid to me.
So the hacking of the institution also? Not that.
I think in hacker means the institution is not so relevant, to be honest. Or if it's relevant, it's not. So in hacking, you don't necessarily go against something, rather circumvent it in a way that it fits your goals. So the institution might be a means, but it's not a goal, if that answers the question.
So for a long time, I've been thinking about this. I am usually on the side of the losing team. Or the losing team in a match, and maybe that is why I'm an artist. I think that artist with its back foot still has a weird position that, okay, if I would wear Slavoj Žižek, I would have a more vulgar version, but I will would say the nicer version, art is like a hole on capitalism, where sometimes you can smuggle things in, and like it still works. Art is affected by capitalism, but somehow it still works also as a backdoor, which it itself doesn't always see as a backdoor, So this is what I like, and I was even thinking about how it was not the position of art all the time, and in the 16th century this was actually maybe natural sciences, that it was like a new niche, weird thing that brought about some kind of change, maybe not a huge change, but definitely it was like one of the holes that the change came in. And this is why I find that art, even with its institutions which are problematic, blah blah, have this possibility to smuggle things in, and this is why I find myself being an artist.
So I think even though we could keep talking, I think for another at least good half an hour, I would take the opportunity to wrap the first day of Metaforum X up, and or at least the official conference part of it, but I would also like to promote that there are evening programs ahead of us. There's an English-friendly program at the Intermedia Department of the Hungarian University of Fine Arts, starting from 6 p.m., which is going to be a screening program followed by a discussion plus an online Q&A with Oleksiy Radnitsky. So the screening will be the film titled Where Russia Ends. And for the Hungarian-speaking audience, there is also another program starting 6 p.m. Also here at the Trafo Gallery, which is a finissage event of the Geisterknochen exhibition, followed by another magazine launch event of the Hungarian Literary and Cultural Studies journal Helikon. The new issue of Helikon is titled Ethno-Futurisms. There are a lot of minoritarian space programs named, a lot of other kind of alternative futurities attempted. So it is worth joining both events. And also I would like to let you know that tomorrow's program will start at 10 a.m. sharp once again with our fourth session, and by design tomorrow's event would rather take place in the form of an actual forum, so it's going to be more discussion based, and hopefully we will see each other also tomorrow. So with that being said, I would like to ask for another round of applause for everyone who presented today, and thank you very much for all the organizers and our hosts. So thank you very much.